Hi everyone. So since starting this channel, we have been approached numerous times by different pharmaceutical companies to work with them in some way or another. And so in today's video, we're going to be talking about why we haven't worked with any of these companies yet. We're also going to be talking about what it's been like to be in talks with these companies. Also, we'll let you know something you may not know about mental health funding, and we'll also answer the question of whether or not we'd be willing to work with pharmaceutical companies in the future. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Living Well with Schizophrenia channel. If you're new here, my name is Lauren and I make videos about what it's like to live with schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia. And if you would like to see more videos like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Also, if you would like to help support the creation of future videos like this one, please make sure to check out the link to our Patreon page. It's in the description below. All right, so as we've mentioned before, we haven't taken any money from pharmaceutical companies to this point. So this has been kind of frustrating because, pharmaceutical companies have deep pockets and they have a vested interest in reaching the audience that we have, people who are living with mental illness. And so, it seems like there'd be an opportunity to work together there because, we need funding to keep doing what we're doing. And it feels like it would be a good partnership to, take money from big pharmaceutical companies. This would also be helpful because right now we currently rely on audience funding as well as on YouTube ad revenue. And YouTube has been demonetizing a lot of our videos lately because they deem it controversial. So these are videos that touch on suicide or addiction or whatnot, which are really meant to be helpful and not at all to glorify these things, but they're still deeming these videos as controversial and thus demonetizing them. All right, so given all this, why haven't we worked with Big Pharma yet? So I think the main reason here is control. So, to no fault of their own, really, they want to control the message of people who they're funding. And that makes sense. They don't want bad press or anything. And they want to be able to have control over the message that's being put out in their name. Now, this kind of results in a bit of a problem with us because, we want to be really representative of our audience and we want to speak from our experiences and not be controlled by another third party. And we have also made it clear that our position is not necessarily completely pro-med. And, while we're not anti-med, we do have our criticisms of, pharmaceuticals in general and big pharmaceutical companies. And we've talked about this in other videos, but one of the big criticisms that we have around big pharmaceutical companies is their role in and how they have managed or not managed the opioid crisis. And so many of these pharmaceutical companies who are involved in the opioid crisis, which is really kind of all of them, are looking to kind of rebuild their public image. And so this is where the self-serving narrative comes into play in terms of who they want to work with and the image that they want to build and create. And so they are looking to produce content that creates a more positive depiction of, their position within society and their views on mental health and their role within promoting positive mental health. It can also just be simply about promoting their own medications or, promoting things that bolster their product or their public image. There's also the really big matter of trust from our audience. And, we understand that there is a level of mistrust within our audience of pharmaceutical companies. And, I've been accused of being a paid actress for pharmaceutical companies. And so we know it's something that's kind of on the minds of our audience. And we really don't want to abuse that trust at all by collaborating with pharmaceutical companies and in turn having the questions come up of whether or not our message is being tainted or altered in some way by these pharmaceutical companies. All right, so that said, what's it actually like to work with big pharmaceutical companies? So we haven't actually worked with any yet. We've just been in talks about potentially collaborating with them. I can't talk about specifics about what we've discussed with these pharmaceutical companies or which pharmaceutical companies we've been in communication with due to NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. But we have been in talks with a few different pharmaceutical companies, and ultimately it has all fallen apart for the various reasons listed before. Also kind of interesting to note is that we haven't actually been in direct communication with any of these pharmaceutical companies who have reached out to us. It has always been through a PR agency or, some third party connecting us. And this just goes to show you again the deep pockets of pharmaceutical companies. And, unfortunately, they pay these PR companies to also work on bolstering their public image. And these PR companies are really good at talking and, making you think that the pharmaceutical company is really on your side and invested in the message that you are wanting to project. And, we felt pretty good about some of these talks with these PR agencies or PR companies where it's felt like they really understood the message that we were trying to put out to our audience, and they wanted to support us in, spreading that message. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that these PR agencies are ultimately responsible to the pharmaceutical companies. And so at the end of the day, what ends up winning out is the pharmaceutical company's agenda. So ultimately, it's been a bit of a frustrating experience because, we get excited about working in a fruitful and meaningful way with these companies, and then it just kind of falls apart because we realize, what the actual motives are, or our root goals just don't really line up and mesh very well. And so it's been a little bit disappointing in that regard. So would we take money from a big pharmaceutical company in the future? That's a really tough call, and it's something that we keep struggling with every time these opportunities come up. And, it's important to point out that most mental health organizations, if not all, receive funding from pharmaceutical companies. And this is just kind of what the landscape of current mental health, funding for initiatives looks like. And, especially schizophrenia organizations are funded by drug companies who have, a vested interest in that, in reaching that demographic. They make various antipsychotics or medications for people who are living with this illness. And so, it's important to point out that most people who you see talking about these things publicly or having nonprofits around these things, these mental illnesses, are funded by drug companies. So at this point where we're at, I think what we would need in terms of taking money from pharmaceutical companies is kind of total autonomy over what we're producing for, not for them, but as a result of their funding. And this just hasn't been the case yet. No pharmaceutical company has come forward with this kind of no strings attached proposal for us. We haven't gotten this kind of proposal from anyone really, except for you, our audience, through GoFundMe donations and through Patreon donations. And we are so, so grateful for this. And this really, speaks volumes to who we really want to keep in mind when we're creating content and who we're creating content for, and ultimately who finds our content most valuable. And it's you, our audience, and we want to thank you so much for supporting us in making content that feels good to us and feels true to who we are and true to the message that we want to put out into the world. All right, so hopefully that helped clear up some of the things that are going on behind the scenes with our channel. And we really wanted to create this video in an effort to just be as transparent as possible to your audience and to let you know our stance on, taking money from other sources such as big pharmaceutical companies. And, it's disappointing that we haven't been able to do that so far because, big pharma has a lot of money and they could really help our initiative move forward in terms of, broadening the resources and content that we're able to put out and ultimately growing towards becoming a nonprofit, which is one of our large long-term goals. And so, unfortunately, our goals just haven't aligned yet with any pharmaceutical companies that have come our way. But we just wanted to let you know that we're making a commitment to you, our audience, to not compromise our channel and the content that we're putting out in any way from the people that we're taking money from. And if we do end up taking money from pharmaceutical companies in the future, we are going to make sure that they are giving us the autonomy to create the content that still feels good to us and feels true to you, our audience. And so after all of this, we are very, very interested in hearing what you have to say about all of this. How would you feel about us taking money from pharmaceutical companies in the future? And maybe something else to mention in your comment is maybe what it would take for you to feel comfortable knowing that we are taking money from pharmaceutical companies. What would we need to do to make sure that you feel comfortable with that? We would love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. All right, so thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was insightful in some way into the goings-on behind our channel and kind of what's on our mind in terms of where we're receiving funding. If you would like to see more videos from us, make sure to subscribe to our channel. And if you would like to help support us, because we are not not being currently supported by Big Pharma, please make sure to check out the link to our Patreon page. It is in the description below. So thank you so much for watching, and as always, wishing you and your loved ones good health. See you in the next video. Bye.